Hey guys, what's going on? Inception here, and welcome to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have the 4-4-2 formation slash tactics video to do today. This is actually going to be from Nick from Run the Foot Markets formation slash tactics. There was a night where he and I were chilling in a Discord call, and he was playing some games, and I was watching the games that he was playing, and the way that his tactics and his formation, the way that his players were moving on the pitch, I was kind of like curious about it because it was a 4-4-2, and I think that 4-4-2 is one of the most meta formations in the game. I think the next one I want to try out is definitely a 4-2-2, but it has to be a good one that I have to kind of like figure out, because the 4-4-2 and the 4-2-2 are very similar formations, but the difference is that one is a little bit more defensive and narrow-minded, while the other one is more wide and attacking-minded, right? So it's very, very interesting to take a look at the two when it comes to each situation of the game. But for today, guys, I want to show you guys this formation and tactics. There's a few things that I did adjust because there's only two different things that I didn't like, but it wasn't because of it not being great. It's just for playstyle, right? So in regards to this formation and tactics, I'm going to show you guys how it actually lines up in game, right? So the main one is the 4-4-2 setup like this, with pressure on heavy touch, 41-55 balance, forward runs 55, as well as 6 for players in the box. The instructions, he had it on stay back while attacking, as well as the step up instruction. For me personally, guys, I don't like the step up instruction for this formation for only the fullbacks, which is what he was doing. I think a good experimentation would be to put step up on all 4 of the players, but then it would be super easy to go for those lob passes or those through balls, because when I was using the step up instruction, honestly, I would say that a large majority of the goals that I conceded, I would say like 85 or 90% of the goals that I ended up conceding, were because of the instructions of step up, right? Or because of the actual tactic where the defense is set on pressure on heavy touch. And this is why I have 2 different variations of this formation, right? Because it's very situational in game. You shouldn't just stick to one, although sticking to one wouldn't be bad if your defending style is a little bit different. So the instructions, like I said, I only have it on stay back while attacking for the fullbacks. The 2 center mids is on stay back while attacking, cover center. But here's the thing, okay? They have these 2 instructions, but you have to understand that you have these for tactics. So the forward runs is going to force the base characteristics out of a card as much as possible, right? So with a card like Verratti being medium high, he'll just be the more defensive oriented card. With a card like Marcus Llorente, he'll be the more attacking oriented card because of the high medium work rates. Even though I tell him to stay back while attacking and cover center, he's still going to push forward from time to time, especially because the tactic is forcing it out of him, okay? Left mid, right mid, Nick has it on come back in defense, stay wide, get into the box, as well as get in behind. I actually take off the get in behind instruction out of the cards because I'm already forcing the runs out of the players with the forward runs part of the tactic. So I feel like it's unnecessary to force the extra get in behind, because the build-up play between the fullbacks and the left mids and right mids is not ideal in my opinion when you have them on getting behind, because they always run away from you, right? So the only support that you can work with is in the midfield area through the middle, which I don't really like too much, right? So I take off the getting behind instruction, and then for the strikers, I actually tell them to stay central and come back on defense. The defensive part you don't notice as much for actual defending. You notice it, like I told you guys in the 4-2-3-1 video, you notice it more for general build-up, right? When I win possession of the ball, I like that extra support through the middle while I'm slowly building, not slowly, but trying to build up the play pushing forward, right? So that is one of the tactics that I would recommend, obviously, pressure on heavy touch. But then the other one is the exact same tactics, okay? Except for the defense on balance. You should actually start off your team in the balance tactic to kind of feel out your opposition, right? Because if he's playing a certain way, then you'll realize, hey, if I put some pressure against this guy on pressure and heavy touch, this will actually make sense for this situation. But to start off the game, guys, play it on the balanced, right? And use the exact same instruction. You don't have to change anything, right? So fullbacks, stay back while attacking. Center mids, stay back while attacking, cover center. This, we have come back, stay wide, get into the box, come back, stay wide, get into the box, stay central, yeah, just stay central on the strikers and then come back in defense. Right. That's all you have to do. Those are the two tactics that you should set up in game to be able to fully utilize the 4-4-2, in my opinion. Now, the types of players you're going to want to have in this team, and I do think this is very important because Nick was using a Brazilian team the other day, and I was joking around with him saying that this is more balanced than the other team. It's definitely not, because of certain types of players that he had in his team. So the back four that you guys see here is perfection. In the game, it really is. Ferland Mendy, with this year, high 4-star, 5-star, crazy good defensive stats, good physical capabilities. He is a very good card this year. Kimpembe, Marquinhos, obvious choices. They have that it factor in this game to make them as good as possible. And then Cancelo in this year's game is absolutely phenomenal. He is insanely good this year. Very, very good fullback, right? So you want to try to have defensive players is not as linear, right? But you want to try to go as meta as possible, obviously, right? And it's pretty obvious who you should go with, right? Players that can, you know, have the pace, have the defense, have that physical capability to defend those areas as much as possible. Now, here's the importance part, because I think Nick the other day was using, he was using Fred. It was Fred and Firmino as the center mids. Fred and Firmino is okay if you're being super attacking oriented, which Nick actually likes to use on his tactics a lot. But for the balance of the team, it's not there, okay? It's very important that in this formation slash tactic, you have someone who is a medium-high work-rated player that can dribble the ball and that can pass the ball when need be, okay? The Verratti card was a good SBC to get. Obviously, like I said in the review, there's two things lacking on the card. It's manual sprint speed, which I said in the review, you don't notice too much because it's mostly going to be AI that you have to notice the most, especially on that stay back while attacking instruction. But it's mainly in height when it comes to intercepting the ball, right? Just height. If the ball is like anywhere near his vicinity, really close, he'll do a good job. His tackles are great, very possession based, very strong because of his center of gravity being very low, which is very, very helpful. This is why Verratti's card is sick. And he also has that 4-star capability. So I highly recommend that you try your best to get a good medium high work rate player, or you have someone who may have the high work rates but is more defensive oriented as a high work rated player. Okay, that's going to be very, very important. So those types of players are what you really need in the team. Your other center mid can be someone like Llorente, right? So with Llorente, he's fine on 7 chemistry or 8 chemistry in this case, because take a look at this card's base card stats, right? So he already has very high pace, and he already has very high defending, taking into consideration a lot of things, because with a card like this, the pace boost is great, the defending boost is great, but he's good at everything else. He has a really good shooting presence on the card, 87 attacking position with the high medium work rates, 81 finishing, 84 for shot power. He has the weak foot, 4-star weak foot. Base card stats for passing is there, dribbling. You notice the balance, you do. You can give him an engine chemistry style for sure, 100%. But for me, I aim for those cards to be as good as possible defensively, because he still has good sharp dribbles, but with his sharp dribbles, you notice the balance. So again, in this area, you want a card that can attack and defend. Even if you were to go with like a Renato Sanchez card, that would work out perfectly. In the side positions, it would be mostly ideal to have someone who is a high work rated player, but you can also work with a high medium. So in this case, we have Carrasco playing in on the right side, and then we have Joe Cole playing on the left side. It is super ideal to try as much as possible to use players that are strong foot on the strong side, okay? So, you know, using someone like a Dembele on that left side would probably be more ideal, but Dembele doesn't fit the attacking AI that I want in those side positions, right? But a high medium work rate would work out well too. You could use a high low, but a high low could be too aggressive and it kind of ruins the balance of your team a little bit. So a Joe Cole, him being a high medium, Carrasco being a high, very ideal. You want to try your best as much as possible to have strong from the strong side. In this case, I can totally go with Corona on the right side with Manafa's card, and I can have a 5-star weak foot on the left side. But these two cards are untradeable, so it's really cool to I love cards that are actually mine to build up their stats. It's the same thing with this Correa card. I mean, take a look, 75 games, 62 goals, 35 assists. Can't go wrong with that, right? But yeah, very important there. And then the strikers. This year, guys, strikers, very important. It's so important to have players that have the right base characteristics, okay? Here's the thing with this team. So I think Fakir makes for a better cam, but you know what happens, right? When a card plays really well in the cam position, they usually tend to play really well as a secondary striker, which Fakir does a really good job at in this 4-4-2. Correa has the base mechanics, but the problem with him, right, is in dribbling, with composure being at a 76 under pressure. You do notice those things, but Correa is one of those cards that has that it factor in the striker position, and I'm really hoping that in the future they actually release a gameplay objective for his card, because even a João Felix won't do or move the way that a Correa will, even with his upgrades, right? Cards have base characteristics that you really need, and Correa is one of those cards. Maybe at some point in the future I can get the Keen Foot Heroes card, because Keen is one of those guys. If you give him a Hunter chemistry style, he has good dribbling, he has good shooting, good pace, and good attacking positioning, which is so important for the high medium work rate. So ideally in the striker position, you want to try to have players who are high medium as much as possible with good attacking positioning. So in Fakir's case, he has 90 with high medium work rates, which is good. Correa has 89 with high medium work rates, which is good. You can also work with a secondary striker that is a medium. You could do that, although personally for my playstyle, not super ideal. Or you can have a high-low work rated player there. So, you know, in this case, I can use a Ben Yedder card up top, or I can use Kylian Mbappe's card up top, and that would be super ideal as well, right? You just have to make sure that you have a balance of two kind of different types of players as much as possible. But at the same time, if they gave me a Keen card and they also gave me a Correa card, I would use both of them up top at striker without a doubt, because they have that it factor that I need up top in those areas. But yeah, we have some highlights that I'm going to go ahead and show you guys, and we'll break down what I did in each situation and why I like to use this formation and tactics for what it is. Okay guys, so let's get started with the highlights and what my mentality was when it comes to breaking down the team. So you guys can actually see here that I was actually initially using the Bruno Fernandes card in my team, and I had to switch him, bro, because with Llorente, I realized that he was actually usable on 7 chemistry, which just made the most sense for me to put him in the squad because of the base characteristics that I needed there. Because Bruno Fernandes is a good center mid, but I don't like him in a 2 midfield setup, so I did have to change that at some point, right? But you can see here that from a breakdown with the center backs who were actually able to score, those are the high percentage strike angles that I'm talking about, right? Like even with Kimpembe not having crazy shooting stats, he was still able to score a goal like that in that situation. But I just want you guys to see the buildup of what we go for when we're using the 2 strikers on the Stay Central. So this was me initially using the formation and tactics with the step up, with the strikers not coming back. But I just want you guys to see some of the movement that I was working with, right? So with forward runs activated on the cards, you can already see the initial run with Correa pushing forward, how the left mids and the right mids kind of open up for those crosses, and how you can go for those extra passes because of the other striker on Stay Central working with that forward runs tactic as well, right? So over here, this is a couple of buildups. Strikers through the middle. This is Rafinha or Carrasco actually in that situation, being through the middle for a nice little goal. The gameplay for these first 2 games that you guys saw, the first 3 games, I actually had to stop playing at some point because the delay was horrendous. Like I was getting 20 latency games, but I just literally could not control my players properly. Like I would left stick dribble in a certain area and they just wouldn't respond to the commands properly, right? So but yeah, with the formation and tactics guys, you could see Llorente offering a very good defensive presence there. Very tall player, which is obviously very, very helpful. In a situation like this, we do end up getting the penalty, but I want you to see something very specific there, right? When I got the initial touch there with Fakir, I had to just go for a tiny touch downwards, which is easier said than done because of the gameplay inconsistencies, right? Because Correa was already making that run right after that pass. That base explosiveness is what you need, right? So in a situation like this with Correa, I just wait for the open space to work with Fakir through the middle. That is actually a driven pass. What you want to work with the most playing FIFA is when you make those passes through the middle, the driven passes are very, very helpful. Carrasco, situation like this, Correa making the runs forward. We do a couple of dribbles because we want to work the space in the middle as much as possible. You could see that what I do here with Carrasco is I go for this commitment forward, but then I go back because I rely on my attacking players to do that push forward, come back, right? Push forward, come back. You guys have to understand that when you go for shot cancels, when you go for the extra dribbles inside the 18-yard box, if you have that aggressive center mid making those runs inside the 18 and you have your other striker on stay central, you'll actually find yourself in situations always having that extra space and that extra pass to work with for the easier strikes, because as you guys know, the game is very park the bus heavy, so you do have to work for that extra touch as much as possible, or that extra pass to score your opportunities. In an area like that, like you guys just saw there, that was a very good example of the meta of the game, right? Doing a driven pass into the middle and only using the left stick to dribble into certain areas, getting that first touch drag into certain areas is a very helpful way of scoring some goals in FIFA, right? So in a situation like this, again, driven pass into Correa, first time strike with his left foot, we scored across the goal. The forward runs tactic is very important, but the base card characteristics that you have with your players is also very important, because I was actually thinking about a situation where I wanted to put Bernardo Silva in the team, but I'm only concerned because of the fact that he is a high work rated player and it might not fit the play style that I want for that area of the pitch. But I actually might give it a go, because you guys know me, I like to use my Portuguese players, and I do think that Bernardo Silva is really sick. The only problem is that I really enjoy using the Fakir card in that left striker position because of strong foot on the strong side as much as possible. And if I were to use the Bernardo Silva card in the team, I would have to use Bernardo Silva mainly as a right striker, because the way that the rest of the team is formatted and the way that I like the players to kind of move. Like for me, Joe Cole and Carrasco are mainly players that I would use in the side positions, but Bernardo Silva being a player that I can use through the middle is definitely something that I can work with in a very good way, right? In a situation like this, guys, I don't even shot cancel, okay? I just left stick dribble. If the person is pushing his goalkeeper against you, just left stick dribble to the side or left stick dribble back on the inside to get that easy strike, because the goalies will actually animate themselves in those situations. There's a lot of areas of the pitch where you don't necessarily need to go for the ball roll. You don't necessarily need to go for the shot cancel. You can literally just left stick dribble and open up the space for yourself, right? So it's just one of the ways you can score. But a lot of the attack that you guys are going to see here when I'm using the strikers, when I'm using the side positions, like I was saying earlier, is this overcommitment forward and then I track back immediately. Overcommitment forward, track back immediately, because of that base mechanic in FIFA 22 where the players drag back, right? So a card that's really good to have in the striker position for a formation like this, honestly, is someone like the Arnautovic card, because if you guys actually watch the review, you could see that Arnautovic would push forward and then he would come back. And because Arnautovic has that weak foot and he has really good shooting stats, like, yes, I wouldn't left stick dribble that often with him anyways, but I would just go for the first time strikes as much as possible, right? So in a situation like that, you guys saw earlier, I was using Llorente, right? Llorente, stay back while attacking, cover center. But look how many times this guy actually gets forward in the team because of the forward runs tactics, because of the forward runs instructions. Very important to consider when you have to take a look at these cards, because guys, high medium work rates, he's going to push forward, especially with that tactic being activated. He's going to push forward, right? So a lot of the goals, like I said, guys, that I was conceding was from the pressure tactic, right? But this is why you want to have two variations of this tactic, because the pressure tactic, guys, is actually very helpful if your opponent is playing a play style that is a little bit more conservative and he's not always going for those through ball passes or that park the bus counter attack tactic, which is what most people do play with. So if you notice that your opponent is kind of playing in that way and you're giving him that control, that's when it makes sense to use your pressure tactics as much as possible. You do have to practice your manual defending as much as possible too, because when you use these pressure tactics, guys, it's actually very easy for your opponent to get those through ball passes, to get those lob passes to your strikers to score their opportunities, and which is why I always mention that the meta of the game is huge this year, because let's just say, for instance, you had two center backs, right, that were very good defensively, were very good physical wise, but they had like base card stats of like 85 pace, for instance, right? And their acceleration was at an 84, their sprint speed was at an 83, something like that. You can actually compensate so well for someone using that specific game style of going for those park the bus counter-attacking options, going for those through balls as much as possible, those lob passes, because of the pace that your players actually have. Because you have to understand that the attacker still has to take a settled touch to be able to score his opportunities. But if your players are fast enough, then they would just get ahead of the attackers anyways, right? So this 4-4-2 is, to be honest with you guys, probably the most enjoyable formation slash tactics that I've used this year, because it fits the meta of the game so well. Because I really do feel like in FIFA, you do need a formation that offers you width, but a formation that offers you a middle presence as well, right? Because here's the thing, man. The 4-2-2 is probably the only other formation that I'm probably willing to try, because I've been trying to use the 4-1-2-2. And to be honest with you guys, I do still have to figure it out, because the 4-1-2-2 is obviously a good formation slash tactic, but it's probably just not the play style that I personally want myself and the way that I want my players to move. So I do have to actually figure that out as much as possible, because obviously it'd be very important to kind of get for the video and stuff. But for the play style, guys, I feel like it's just not super ideal for me personally, right? Like the 4-4-2, the 4-2-3-1, the 4-2-2 even though it's a little bit more narrow based, it still has width to it because it's a left attacking mid and a right attacking mid, right? So I do think that these formation tactics are very good. I would definitely recommend the adjustments that I did for the team, but if you actually want to play a Nick style where it's a little bit more aggressive, you could definitely do that as well, because what you have to practice the most is if you use those pressure tactics, guys, you have to practice your manual defending as much as possible. You have to understand when you should apply pressure to the opponent so that he doesn't get that lob pass angle and that he doesn't get that through pass angle. But like I said, guys, these formation tactics is very good. Make sure that you have the right players in the right positions and the right teams and all that good stuff, and it'll definitely move across the pitch really well and help you score a lot of opportunities. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video today. I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace out, dudes. Love you guys.